Welcome back, house kids. Eric here. Today is Saturday, July 11th, and we are on House Kids lesson 476 gazillion 32,003. Don't do the math on that. It's going to take too long. Let's just get to the lesson. Where were we? We left off with Joseph being sold as a slave by his brothers and shipped off to Egypt. So what happened? So he gets shipped off to Egypt, right, as a slave, and there is an officer in Egypt named Potiphar, and Potiphar purchases him as a slave. So now Joseph is Potiphar's slave. So he does work for Potiphar. And one day, Potiphar's wife tries to convince Joseph to sin against God and Potiphar. And Joseph was like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's wrong. I'm not going to sin against God and, my master Potiphar. And, we've all had people like that in our lives. I know you have, I have, maybe someone at school, maybe even a brother or sister tries to get us to do something that we shouldn't. Well, that's what Potiphar's wife did. But Joseph was like, I'm not going to do that. I know who God is. I'm not sinning. And she was mad. And so she went and told a lie and said that Joseph tried to attack her and she escaped. Of course, they believe her. They don't believe a slave. So Joseph ends up getting put in prison. What? He didn't even do anything wrong. First off, he gets sold as a slave. Now Joseph is in prison as an innocent man. And we'll find out that he still knows God. He still follows God because while he's in prison, he's still doing the right thing. And I think someone who isn't really thinking about God would normally maybe be a little bitter, a little grumpy and upset and be like, I'm not doing anything. Why am I in this bad position, God? Well, he still respects God. He still knows God. He does the right thing. And the warden, the guy in charge of the prison, notices that about Joseph. And so he puts Joseph in charge of the other prisoners. So now Joseph has a leading role in the prison. And one day there is two prisoners, a cupbearer and a baker. Now, I know everybody, you all know what a baker is. They bake goods. But a cupbearer, what is that? Some of you might not know what a cupbearer is. A cupbearer would, back in the day, he would bring a drink to someone of royalty. In this case, we're in Egypt, and kind of like the king of Egypt was the Pharaoh, and he was the one who ruled over all of Egypt. And so the cupbearer in Egypt would bring the Pharaoh a drink, make sure it's all nice and it's safe to drink. And here you go, Pharaoh. And so the Pharaoh would be like, where's my drink? Bring my cupbearer. And that's what he did. So the cupbearer and the baker, who were in prison with Joseph, were talking about dreams that they had, and they didn't know what these dreams meant. Well, if we remember, Joseph has a gift. God gave Joseph the gift to be able to interpret dreams. Interpret means to say what something means. So he could, if someone has a dream, oftentimes God would tell him what that person's dream actually means, if it means anything at all. And in this case, the cupbearer and the baker talked about their dreams, and Joseph said, I can tell you what your dreams mean. And the cupbearer says, well, my dream is, I dreamt that there was 3 vines, and I had a cup, and I was squeezing a grape from each of these 3 vines. And Joseph says, your dream means that you will not be in here much longer. In fact, you are going to be put back in the position of a cupbearer for the Pharaoh. You're going to get your job back and you'll be out of prison. Cupbearer's like, yeah, I love this guy and his dream analysis. Nice job. 2 thumbs up for his dream analysis. And the baker's like, oh, that's awesome. Do me. Tell me what my dream means. And so the baker says, oh, I was dreaming that I had 3 baskets balancing on each other on top of my head, and they have bread in them. And while I'm trying to balance these baskets of bread, birds are attacking at it. And that's my dream. And so Joseph says, well, your dream's a little different. Sorry, but your dream means that in a few days, you're not getting out of here. In fact, you're going to be executed. Blah. And the baker was probably like, I don't like your analysis of dreams. I don't like it at all. 2 thumbs down. I'm giving you a bad review on Yelp. Nah. Well, those things happened. God spoke to Joseph and to those people, and those things happened. The cupbearer ended up getting his position back as a cupbearer, and the baker ended up getting executed. Blah. Just like Joseph said. Now, on the way out, with the cupbearer, Joseph said, hey, before you go, I'm innocent. I didn't actually do the things that they said I did while I'm in here. Don't forget me. Remember me and what I did for you. Excuse me. But the cupbearer goes off, and the cupbearer forgets completely about him. He's just like, I got my job back. I'm the cupbearer. And he doesn't remember anything about Joseph for like years. And so Joseph's still in prison as an innocent man, but he's still following God. He's still doing the right thing. And so he's in there for a couple years more until the Pharaoh has a couple dreams. And the Pharaoh's like, I need to know what these dreams mean. And none of his people can understand what his dreams mean. And when he was talking about that, the cupbearer overheard him, and the cupbearer said, wait a minute. I remember when I was in prison, there was this guy, Joseph, who interpreted my dream, and it came true. And he interpreted this baker's dream, and that came true too. And so the Pharaoh was like, bring me this Joseph guy. I need to know what he has to say. And so Joseph comes to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh tells him his dreams. And Pharaoh's first dream was of 7 fat, big, healthy cows, and then there was 7 skinny little bitty cows, and those skinny cows ate the big fat cows. And then he had another dream. It's a weird dream. Another dream where there was 7 heads of grain, and they're real plump, and they're real big. And then there was 7 shriveled up little heads of grain, and the shriveled up heads ate the big heads of grain. And so those were his dreams. And Joseph says, I'll tell you what those dreams mean. Those dreams mean that we are going to have 7 years of plenty of food, lots of crops. It's going to be raining, and there'll be sun, and we'll have just so much food for 7 years that we won't know what to do with it all. But after 7 years, there's going to be a famine. The land is going to dry out. There won't be rain, and we will not be able to grow food for 7 years. And so Pharaoh, and then Joseph was basically like, you might want to get someone to take care of that, because that sounds like it could be a big problem. And Pharaoh says, God is with this man Joseph, and I want God pretty much in charge because I don't want bad stuff happening, which is smart. So he puts Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. The only one who is higher up as far as leading in Egypt is the Pharaoh. And then next in line is Joseph. So Joseph was just in prison for years as an innocent person. And now how the tables have turned. And now he's totally in charge of all of Egypt. You see, God's plan is starting to come true exactly as God wanted it to. It seemed like it probably took a while for Joseph. I mean, he was in prison this whole time, but it's happening. And Joseph, while he was in charge, he managed everything. All the crops that were grown during those 7 years, just as he said, were tons of crops. And so he took all the extra crops and he started, put them in there. And after a while, there was so much he couldn't even keep track of it all. Through the clipboard, throw everything in the storage. And so they stored up tons of food during the 7 years. And just as he said, as God told him, After that 7 years, boom, there's no more food growing. There was a famine in the land. But he prepared. And so all the people who needed food, they came to Joseph, and he's like, here you go. Yep, see you next week. And, oh, hey, Bob, here you go. And they were able to get food to all the people, right? And so this whole time he's in prison, God's plan was going to happen. And we're starting to see it happening now. And if you remember last week when I told you that God spared Joseph's life because he's going to use Joseph to save Joseph's family, that's about to happen. And we're going to learn about that next week. But just remember this week that God's plans always come true. And we're starting to see that here in the story of Joseph. And also, Joseph was unique in that he could interpret dreams, just like everyone. We're all unique. God made you unique. That means there's no one else like you. Look around. Look at your friends, your brother or your sister, other people you know. There's no one like you. You're the only one like you. So you are also unique. And you have special talents as well. They might not be, interpreting dreams, what they mean. Maybe you're really good at writing, or maybe you're good at storytelling, or maybe you're very athletic. We all have lots of gifts. And so just remember that God made you exactly how you are. And he's intentional, and he did that on purpose. He loves you. So next week, we're going to get into how God uses Joseph to save his family. All right. We have the coloring sheet and activity sheets for this week. Here we go. God gave Joseph power to understand dreams. This one's got a lot of stuff you can color. So if you're gonna stay in between the lines, this one's gonna take you guys a while, but it's pretty cool. Got the baker over here and the cupbearer over here. And then we have an activity sheet, and this one's called Tools of the Trade. And it says draw lines from the baker, here's the baker, and the cupbearer to tools that they might use for their job. As an example, here looks like a rolling pin. I don't think the cupbearer would use a rolling pin, so I wouldn't draw him to there. But that's a fun activity sheet for you. Robin has a craft for you this week. I don't have it right now with me, but you can see the link down below for her video that you can follow to her video. And then I'm not sure if she needs anything to be printed out. If she does, you will find that in the Dropbox below with all the other stuff, including the Bible story video for the week that you can watch. So, missed you guys. Hope you're having a good July. And I will, if I don't see you at church, as usual, I will see you next time on next week's video. You have a good one. Bye-bye. Bye now. See you.